Hello, and welcome back to the spooky, scary spider lair. I'm Spider, of course, and on this channel, we like to take a prompt, make a character, you know the drill. If you were around for my last video, we took a jack-o'-lantern as the prompt, and for my sketches for the jack-o'-lantern, I had this sketch in particular where one character had this straw witch hat, which I've never seen before. So I decided I would kind of cop my own idea, pull it into a different design. So I've done that here. As you could probably figure out by the title, we're going with Scarecrow. And I figured that would be a good way to incorporate this straw witch hat, which you'll watch me struggle with for a bit. Difficult to angle the head in a way that's not going to be completely obscured by the straw witch hat. So it's going to kind of be a theme throughout this whole episode, is me trying to figure out what goes in front of what when you have on a big hat and you're carrying a big stick on your shoulders. I pulled up reference, believe it or not, eventually. Kind of took a little bit too long for that. Of people carrying, water pails on staffs, what they were holding behind their head. So here's about when I finally kind of step correct and show somebody holding that realistically. Turns out people don't really bend over too far forward. That'd be pretty bad for your back, and that's the entire premise I started with. So drew this next sketch with the person standing a little more upright. And I thought it better displayed the Scarecrow, T-pose, where they're on a stake. So not to T-pose yet again here. I'm seeing a trend. Last video as well. For this character concept, I didn't do as much ideating because I had sort of a strong idea, at least I thought, going in, where this one's going to be more. Sometimes I do design based on, I have like a small idea, I'm going to push it and pull it around. Then sometimes I'll get an idea in my head based on narrative and design around function. And so kind of incorporating those two things here. I had this idea where I want the Scarecrow to be a witch, to have the witch hat, makes sense. And so I was thinking about this magical world, little world building here that this witch lives in, where I would assume in a witch world, right, crows would be kind of sacred, kind of important, kind of seen as magical, not to be disturbed. So when I think of modern Scarecrow tactics, and I was looking at videos too, did my research, there's quite a lot of making loud noises, scary sounds, scary visuals to try to scare them away. And I think even farmers, as much as they don't want the crows around, it also sucks to piss off crows. They don't like that. They'll seek vengeance. So I thought in this world, just in case crows were heralded as more sacred and possibly more powerful, than just a modern, IRL crow. Was thinking, okay, how would this Scarecrow witch not piss off a bunch of crows? And how could we incorporate magic into that? And I was digging farther into this research and found out there are some farmers who will, I think this is mainly in England, they will capture them instead. And there's a lot of regulation around it. You have to, with these crow traps, you have to make sure that the crow has food and water. And I thought it was interesting that you have a decoy crow who sits in one of the cages to sort of signal to the other crows that it's fine. The cage is fine. Like, come in the cage. There's food in here. There's water. So the decoy crow has to be properly watered and fed. And then more crows will join in. It's just like a really simple trap where they come in, they land on the perch, and the splits, opens a door. Anyway, shuts behind them, it locks. And so I was thinking, let's incorporate that. Could be a cool visual to have a bunch of crows in cages, but I didn't want that to look inhumane. So I was trying to convey, possibly not the best I could have. I think it's a little bit hard to read in the end, but the narrative I'm going with is that this witch uses their magic to put the crows to sleep. So once they are all gathered in one place, which I figured could be done with the help of a decoy crow, kind of like in the cage trapping situation in real life. I was thinking maybe this witch could have a decoy crow familiar, and that familiar could be like, oh yeah, everybody come to this area. This is where all the good corn is. All the good cherries, all the good fruit, all the good magical fruit and vegetables, and kind of lure them over there. And then the witch, puts them to sleep gently, puts them in little tiny cages, little crow cages, and then brings them to a different area to let them go humanely. No crow is pissed off. They don't remember much of anything. I'm sure when they wake up, they got some food and water right there ready for them, so they're all well taken care of, and maybe they've got a little mystical spell that helps them delightfully sort of forget that area exists. Although you probably can't keep the crows out for long, I assume. And I assume also in this magical world, it would just be kind of a one-up of like, oh, crows outsmarting the witches outsmarting the crows sort of thing. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I assume some magical crops would still be lost to crows. It is what it is. So I went in with that concept and sort of designed around it. Just trying to hearken anything that could resemble Scarecrow so that it was an immediate read of that. I decided to have the witch adorned with some feathers that they'd collected, kind of haphazardly shoved into little ties around their little carrying shtick and on their person. A lot of scarecrows, where it's just like a thing that they wear bandanas, probably to hide the seam where whatever is being used as their head kind of connects to the rest of their body. So I thought I'd have this person have a prominent bandana, a bunch of feathers poking out from underneath it so that I didn't have to design how that would all clasp together. And also I kind of wanted this to be more of a functional design, even though it's a fantastical concept, because when I think farmer witch, there's magic and all that, but I still think there should be some practicality, which is why I added some realistic sort of elements like bandages. They probably get splinters, working in the fields all day, probably get a little banged and bruised up. So I gave them bandages in several places. Eventually I'll work in a nice farmer's tan, kind of a little sunburned despite the hat. And then since everything was so practical, I decided to pull in a practical farmer shoe. And of course, shoes never disappoint. I love drawing. Shoes are just form and function altogether. I think, because even, look at these. These are farmer shoes. These are for practicality, right? But they're beautiful. I love all the shapes. They're so dynamic and just designed well, all these little facets to keep them on, and it's all function. It all has a purpose for being there, and it's just so beautiful. I could go on. I love drawing shoes. We know this. All the little details, all the eyelets. So amazing. I figured if there was any way to spice up a practical design, shoes never disappoint. So, speaking of saying, I realized in my last video when I was listening back to see if the auto captions were displaying correctly, I said, and about approximately 3 million times. So I'm going to try to sort of slow that down, hopefully. But let's be real, I did that in one take. And I'll probably do this one in one take. Because, just... That's me, one take spider. I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered to do two. I might do two. We'll see. Who knows? Yeah, my conversations are ephemeral. What can I say? If I was to record a second one after this one, it would sound nothing like this. On a related note, I was recently diagnosed with ADD, so there you go. Oh, I love drawing these crows. I love when birds just turn into like a little pile of feathers, just a little puff, a little floof when they sleep. I also love that they turn their head around and tuck it into their wings to sleep sometimes. Like that is what's intuitive to them. For some birds, it's standing on one foot, which I always thought was interesting. I recently went to a state park and saw some ducks about to go to sleep, and they all lifted their little footy up into their tummy feathers and turned their head in their wings. And I was like, man, just can't think of a worse position to sleep in. Like, how is that intuitive to them? It's what they like. That's what they want to do. Then again, I do sit like a bisexual, so I never learned how to use a chair properly. I have this thing where when I'm sitting, I have to be holding all of my limbs as if I'm going to forget they're there. So people will kind of be like, oh, hey, Spider, what's... And like look at me, and I've got like one of my feet up by my neck, and I'm just in a ball, basically, just sitting on my butt, but like holding all of my limbs. It's just bizarre. So birds probably look at me and are like, what the heck? I realized I didn't curse in the last video either, so, you know, my apologies if that was jarring. Oh, this is my least favorite part. I hated making these cages. I could not figure out a good way to do it, and then I go back and change them so many times. I think I edited most of that out, actually. But I settled on, let's just put both sides of the cage on different layers. That way it's easier to shade them or edit them. Struggled with the fact that they were too thick to see the birds through them, so I changed that later. Takes forever. And having these so many layers really caused a lot of problems for me. I just kept choosing the wrong layer when I would go to color something. So this is a cautionary tale. Don't be like me. You just be the best you can be. You don't need to be me. You can be you. So. But yeah, see, I've already gotten so confused with my layers. I'm just drawing on the wrong ones and confusing myself further. This is just, it's all happened in a little fever dream. You know, sometimes that's just the process. That's just my process. So. And then, you can go ahead and just, I mean, this part, yeah, I explained in the last video that I just section off big selections of colors so that I can rapidly change them, go back and select them over and over again, also known as flatting, which is a industry standard for making comics. So I like to use that. So I just skipped through that part. You don't need to watch me just kind of color by number here. I pulled in just a generic autumn colors palette. Oh, they cheated. They didn't use their own colors that they picked out by themselves. Oh my god. Fake artist. Cheater. Hang them by the neck. I should probably also mention that I use they, them pronouns. I'm going to have guests on the show soon, and I think I'm going to have everybody say their pronouns in the beginning, so. And I gotten to this point and realized that I had never actually drawn out this crow familiar. So I used my painting technique, which is to just make that big selection and do all the painting at once, which, you know, is fast. And also, I changed the lighting scheme later, so the way that I shaded this crow didn't make sense with the rest of the lighting, and if it had just been inked and I could have selected the sections of it one by one the way I do the rest of the drawing. Would have been a lot easier to fix, but it's essentially just like you're painting over it again. So I go back in and do that later. I didn't think it looked too bad, not being line work. I like that it drew less attention to it. Those would have been such thin, weird lines anyway, and the crow's black, so it would have just been redundant. And you can go ahead and take all the excitement that I had about making the shoes, just copy paste that over to this background, because I live. Like, this was so fun to make. I was about to go to a corn maze and pumpkin patch the next day, so I was so jazzed. I got myself all worked up looking at corn mazes online for reference. And this is a little less linear than how corn actually grows if you go to a farm, but I thought it was a little too boring and copy paste to have everything be the same height, so I kind of varied it a little bit. Once I had some shapes that I liked, which is pretty easy in Clip Studio, there's just different foliage brushes, which I kind of mixed and matched. It's like just painting with the shape. Once I had those shapes I liked, I had them on kind of a foreground, middle ground, background, and went in with my same cell shading method of just grabbing like a big selection to make a big interesting shadow shape. And the reason I'm panned so far away is to make sure it's easier to see from a distance if you are implying depth or not. You can get the same effect by kind of squinting your eyes to see where the contrast is at. In the past, I've struggled with creating depth in landscapes, and so I do everything I can to try to mitigate that. In general, it's that the darkest thing's always going to be in the foreground, midground's always going to be, mid-color, and then your background, the sky, is always lighter than the rest. Where it starts to confuse me is there are some places that will technically be lighter than the sky. It's just all going on a varying degree of contrast the closer or farther away you are. So, also you can use contrast to draw the eye. So I kind of like relegated, is that it? Yeah. All of the contrast to just the midground and the figure right there. And then everything that recedes in the background starts getting more of the sky color, more blue-gray as it recedes, but still dark enough to be silhouetted against it. Landscapes are like a little dance. Because if you go kind of too literal with dark, medium, light, it gets kind of boring, kind of like 1, 2, 3. And it looks like everything is the same local color. And you don't want that. You want it to look like, the corn husks are a different color than the ground. And just, it's all a delicate dance. So I was happy with how it turned out, though. And like I said, I zoned out. I think I went for about 3 hours straight when I got to the background part. And again, fever dream and it was over type thing. So, but yeah, I had a lot of fun. I live for that stuff. And here I'm adding that kind of the sunburn look. And farmer tan, of course. Gotta have it. And then here I'm relighting the crow because I had to think of a lighting scheme that would show the character's face, because it's challenging if you have a big hat that would be blocking any sunlight coming from directly above. So I had a mix of the sun is sort of off to the left side of the canvas more, so it's past midday, and is casting some shadows, like the corn's casting shadows. And then I also wanted to incorporate that it was like a little bit cloudy so that I could have more interesting shadow shapes than just this area is dark, this area is light. I wanted kind of those little peaking parts happening. So I kind of did like a staged lighting where just conveniently it's just all hitting the character and not much else, just perfectly illuminating them. And then, I mess with the levels a bit. And that's the end. Really happy with this one. Like I said, form and function. For all that talk I said about the shoes, it kind of gets obscured by shadow anyway, but it was drawing a lot of attention, so I felt like it was necessary. I hope you like it. I have some more spooky prompts coming up and gonna have guests too. I can't wait to see what they do with their prompts. I'm so excited. Hope you'll tune in next time. Follow me on social media. Got all those links below. And thanks so much for stopping by. Talk to you soon. this time with more artists. Bye!